I think one of the key issues with food is that people assume that food is an issue, but they don't assume that's an issue here. And maybe that's because we have our grocery stores are fully stocked, and we don't experience shortages, we don't experience high prices in the same way that affect us as, let's say, if we had a much lower income. I think what we need to realize here in Manitoba that the problem of food is not just a problem for somewhere else.
People in the city can't always afford healthy food, but then farmers aren't being paid fair enough for what they're producing. There's too many people in the value chain in the middle between the farmer and the person eating that suck up so much of the profits that it's really created a very unjust system for consumer and producer.
Food impacts environment, impacts poverty issues, impacts health, and so it cuts across a lot of different departments.
So many of the people who live in this neighborhood are so alienated from food and from any sort of traditional practices around food that they think it comes from a box.
So many people now don't eat particularly healthily. If you look at the statistics, it's obvious that 2/3 of Manitobans are overweight or obese, and a similar number don't eat the right number of fruits and vegetables in a day. Like, this is a serious health concern for our society.
If people aren't eating well, or if people cannot acquire enough food to provide for themselves and their family in a way that is not sustainable, then nothing else can happen. You can have sports programs, and you can have recreation programs and safety programs, but the basis for a healthy community is for people to be eating healthy food and in a way that's sustainable for them and provides them dignity and is a way that they can relate to.
I think from the perspective of us in the inner city here, the biggest problems with our food system are usually around access.
The question of why junk food and fast food and convenience food is so much cheaper and easier to access if you're on a low-income budget than the healthy food.
We need to really develop a way of looking at our local production, local distribution, to ensure that people have access to healthy food and sustainable food. Things are changing, or things have changed, and so we really need to respond, and the way that worked for us in the past may not work in the future.
There's so much sort of grassroots, community-oriented work happening around the issue of food.
Our community gardens, community kitchens, community cupboards.
A lot of the groups are taking what was nothing and turning it into productive space that sequesters carbon and allows people to have food right there instead of having to have it shipped from thousands of kilometers. More progressive cities are starting to realize these things, and they've created zoning designations for urban agriculture and for community gardens, and they put a lot of municipal resources into these things. I think it's time that the city start realizing the larger impacts of really small initiatives. And also, not just the benefits of people being able to grow their own food or to have a nice green space in the inner city, but the drawbacks of having that empty lot that's full of garbage and how it decreases the amount of neighborhood pride.
So I guess if we look at food policy, it's an attempt to look at these questions of food security or food sovereignty or local food systems and see what kind of a role that government can or should be playing within that.
But a lot of municipal governments have a lot of support for local food initiatives, and they have food policy councils. So the The Food Policy Councils help to address a lot of the issues that have been coming up in Winnipeg lately.
Basically a tool to bring together the different stakeholders, both at the government level, so this could be in the case of Winnipeg at a municipal level, but also at the community level with community stakeholders, to bring them all together to allow for policies to be developed in consultation with the community.
Issues, a group of people that could sit down and vet the issues and then present to council, much like the Active Transportation Advisory Committee or the Mayor's Environmental Committee.
But the idea is very much about partnership. No one player can make the changes in the food system. The food system involves all of us, and all of us are involved in trying to make changes to that.
The impetus, I think, should be coming from sort of community members who are seeing these issues in their community, whether that's hunger, or whether that's diabetes, or environmental decline, economic decline.
How this is going to be successful is to believe that people have something worthwhile to say.
Because I don't know that it's on the agenda. One of the things that councillors respond to is the electorate saying this is important to us. And I don't think they're hearing that necessarily about food. We need to really change the way that we think about local, and that food is, and our food system, which we take for granted, is much more fragile than most people think.
People don't want to hand out, they want to hand up. And that's what food security is about, is capacity building and giving people the tools to feed themselves. It's important. And I've got an expression, it's called no food, no fuel. And no fuel, no fire. It's just, community development can't happen unless the food security issue is dealt with.